Next step in getting the selector set up is to build a little encoder section. The encoder is going to connect to the selector like this. The encoder is going to have an ECAS collet over here. It's going to have a BMG gear that's going to spin inside here. But that BMG gear is going to have a little wheel, a printed wheel. You print it in black. That wheel is going to spin around and act as a little trigger for this little Binky. You can see there's a little gap right there. That wheel is going to spin around, and that way we know how much it's moving, that particular gear. The gear is going to be moving because of the filament riding against it. Alright, got the Binky. Set that aside. Set that aside as well. To put this together, you're going to need 3 inserts. It's pretty clear. You're going to follow the same instructions as what you have in the manual. So you're going to put an insert, one here, one here, one here. Installing these inserts is going to be nice because those are through holes, which means I can just go ahead and place this here and get my soldering iron, hold it straight, let it heat up, and then just push it through. I've got a block of metal, piece of metal that I like to just use as an iron to push down on it, keep it flat. I should also, while I'm at it, double check with a screw to make sure that it's straight and true. It looks good. 2 more to go. When you print out this little wheel, you're going to find that in addition to this STL, there's going to be another STL for a simple little tool, just a cylinder. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put the wheel, see if I can get that to focus, so that the teeth part over here, just try to do it this way. You're going to want it like this, so that when you push this wheel up against or down on the gear, the teeth will not be on the bottom. It'll be offset a little bit. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. Use that tool. Gently tap it. Until it's flush. Like that. What's going to happen is it's going to ride like this. The Binky encoder is going to sit like this because in between that little gap, the wheel, the teeth of the wheel are going to spin inside, triggering the encoder. Now that you have the wheel on the gear, you're going to want to get this piece and drop it down so that it's laying in place. You don't want to put the axle in first because you're going to have a bit of a time trying to get this wheel in there. It's going to hit. There's a little recess right here. You can see that. So you want that gear, that wheel, to sit in there. Then you can get your axle. It helps to get that axle and do a dry fit in that hole. The hole that's down there. Line it up. Let's see, I think I have my hole. There we go. Just doing a dry fit here because there's a little recess for the other end of the axle. I want to make sure. There we go. I can feel that. You have the gear and the wheel and the axle installed. If you rotate it, you're going to find that it doesn't rotate easily. That's because there's a little brake on this section. It's pretty clever. What happens is this will be pushed down just a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. You can do that now. Pull down just a little bit. If you do that, you'll see it spin smoothly and easily. But when this is floating like this all by itself, it'll push down on the gear and it'll apply resistance. That's because if the filament is pushed out by the system and the gear is just there and you're doing it really quick, you don't want that gear to just freewheel. So this will slow it down. Anyways, so let's go ahead and put it together. We'll put this other piece on top. We've got the inserts already. So let's just do the center part because that's the easiest. It'll hold it together for us. Alright. And then we can do the other two. Or the other screw, at least over here. So we have two screws. Now this is a 623 bearing. We're going to put that, drop it through there. All of these screws are M3 by 20. They should have come with your kit. This is going to be tapping into the plastic. There's no insert. So be careful. I've already done a dry fit of this screw, so that way I've already cut threads into it. But you should just do that yourself carefully. Alright, it's bottomed out. Back off a tiny bit. Alright. That bearing is to oppose the gear. Here's the bearing and here's the gear. And what happens is when you have your filament, and you push it through, you're going to notice this is going to push down. Like that. Because it's sandwiched in between. You should feel it. The filament goes in. You'll feel the gear spinning. And everything should be working well. You can see, you might be able to see the wheel spinning. So let's go ahead and put the Binky encoder on top. Yeah. Sensor is going to be right there. I'm just going to hold it down. Everything still works well. Now what we need to do is just get an M2 by 10 self-tapping screw and put it together. Awesome. There you go. Now we can install it on here. You're going to use M3x20s again. You're going to use an M3x20 over here. M3x20 over here. Alright, encoder's installed. This selector is like a carriage that goes on the rods. Servo's installed. Springy's installed. And the IGUS bearings or drylins are installed. And I've also put the drag chain adapter mount, whatever you want to call it, that's installed as well. Tensioner, let's put one of these in as well. It's a little short. Let's push it in a little bit. There we go. That's engaging. I wonder if I should use a slightly longer one. We'll leave it at that. Okay. Got to install that collet. Alright, so now it's ready. The upper portion this part is going to have an idler in here. This is the springy part. The springy part is different than the one in SturdyBunny. This part, this idler block, is from Springy. This one's from SturdyBunny. They're not the same dimension. I printed this out. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to use the recommended springy part. So I'm going to put the idler, and we'll continue with the rods and putting the carriage on and everything. The kit's nice. All the different pieces come in different little bags. So pretty sure this piece, this screw, is for here. And then get the idler, drop it in between. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to want to get a lock nut. Going to drop that lock nut in there. Alright, it's pressed in. And I just need an Allen key. Alright, got an Allen key, Allen wrench. Looks good. This is the opposite side. It's going to go over here. The carriage is going to slide in there. By the way, I printed out this little cover plate for 2020 extrusion to hold that down. It's nice. Alright, these are good. One thing I've done already is I've put in a lock nut in there. I've also done the same thing over here. I put a lock nut. That's going to go here. We're going to use these screws for that. Before I do that, I think I'll install the motor. Here's that motor. Slides in. You can see your holes. Oops. The motor line up. There's this little piece. Locks it in. So we'll get some M3x8s. screws, I think, are supposed to be tapped into there, so that way you can adjust how far the rods go in. While on this side, I think they bottom out. I'm thinking that's how that goes. Take a look over here. See these little dots? They're going to register against these little divots. It's going to go like that. That way you know where it's supposed to be. Okay, let's get this installed. Alright, here's the carriage. Servo. Alright. That feels good. Seems to be lining up over there. Alright. That looks good. In my excitement to kind of just keep moving forward, I failed to realize I needed to put inserts here, 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 and here, as you see in the instructions. Those inserts are going to be used for these, I think they're M3x16. So I already had this lined up just right, so I'm going to go ahead and put these M316s in here. They're going to keep these rods from trying to push forward any further than that. So I'm going to bottom them out so they're against the rod. I'll do it here, I'll do it here, and then I've also placed in onto the shaft this 16 or 20 tooth pulley. Alright. I haven't tightened it down, I just laid it in place. I'm going to install the belt. I'm not going to tighten it, but I'm going to install it. I guess this belt is long enough for the 9 channel or 9 port. Cut that. It's pretty good. Alright. I can tighten that further, but I'm not going to do that right away. But I should have enough travel over there for this to be tightened. Alright. So we'll have the upper assembly set up. I do, and I even tighten the belt and tighten down the pulley. But what's up next is the wiring. The wiring and this drag chain. The drag chain's going to go here. So that way when the carriage goes back and forth, it'll do its magic, protect the wiring. But before I do that, I need to get this little bracket, put some heat set inserts. It's going to go in here. And I also need some screws. So I'll do that now. The kit had a lot of M3x8s, but I used a lot of them for the filament blocks onto the 2020 extrusion. So I'm going to do a few more. Okay. For the drag chain, we're going to screw this here, screw this here. We need to run the wires through this. These connectors, the servo, are not going to feed through. So my plan is to remove these wires from the actual connector housing. You can do that by pushing down on little tabs on where those little metal connectors are. Pull out the wires. I also have this wire here, which is going to be hooked up to the encoder. That needs to be fed through a little path here. And then they're going to meet up. And then there's going to be a zip tie right here where these little holes are. And then they're going to go route themselves through. So, same thing. I'm going to have to remove the wires from this. I'm going to take pictures so I know the orientation of the wires. Inside this connector housing, you can see these little metal connectors. They move just a little bit. What I like to do is I use a little thumbtack. I'm going to push down right here on each one of them individually. As I push down here, it's going to depress this little tang that prevents this metal part from sliding out. So I'm going to push down here. Maybe I can even do it right now. Normally I push down while it's on the table or my workbench. Focus. Let's go. Alright, I'm going to do it this way. Push the wire in, so that way you have more access to that little tang. Push down, and then pull out. And it'll come out. The little tang that I'm talking about is that little piece right there. You're pushing down right here. Alright, let's do the rest. Again, push forward. Push that forward so that way you can get to the tang. Alright, the little barb. You just keep working on it. Alright, got that one. Alright, got it out. So now I can feed this through the drag chain. This is a DuPont connector. This does not have a little piece of metal that you push down. Instead, you're going to lift up on this part of this plastic. Just stick something underneath, lift up, and you should be able to pull it out. Let's see if I can do that down here. See how that's lifted up. Just repeat that. Don't break it off. There you go. They should bend back down.